Okay, so happy to be here with you. Today we're going to explore and do a little overview of inversions. So that is taking the head below the heart. So technically that's what that means. And we're going to kind of put in our focus on the component parts and the practice of a diagonal wall handstand. So that is a very accessible version where you walk up the wall, you're not kicking to the wall. So it has more elements of stability, and it's a great place to um, teach a more active inversion and learn a more active inversion, and also get all the what needs to be warmed, opened, and educated in the body. Okay, so again, we're talking about bringing the head below the heart. And there are plenty of poses that technically could be inversions, like downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana, down dog, or Uttanasana, forward fold. Uh, and that's technically an inversion, but what we're really talking about is more active inversions. And we can categorize them as to like heating. They're active heating or active cooling, right? So with heating inversions, energizing, it's going to build courage, it's going to build upper body strength and shoulder flexibility. Heating inversions include handstand, all the variations, including the one we're doing today. Pinchamayurasana, forearm stand, right? Which we'll do in a different exploration. And cooling inversions still take action and engagement and stability. So it's not like you're hanging out in those. It really takes a lot of skill, but possibly less effort to hold, and the energy in the body cools. It starts to prepare you for stillness and meditation. So those inversions that are going to prepare you for stillness and meditation are Shirshasana, and I like variations of Shirshasana where there is no weight on the head, and we'll talk about more about that later. Shoulder stand and the shoulder stand cycle. So the cycle is plow pose, into shoulder stand and back into plow, and then releasing the body. So also Viparita Karani, or legs up the wall or legs up on the chair. These all would be cooling, preparing for meditation inversions. Okay, so the benefits of especially the heating active inversions is that they're going to energize, they're going to help with circulation, they're going to help with lymphatic drainage. Okay, so because the legs are above the heart and the veins are going to return the blood faster to the heart, so it's going to be more efficient for the blood to be circulated and cleared and cleaned. The lymphatic system will drain. So that's all really good stuff. Depending on exactly what you're doing, you're strengthening the shoulders, you're strengthening the core. You increase your proprioception, right? So where are you in space? And that's going to help with all kinds of things, including balance in your regular everyday life. So it's a full body activation, right? You can feel very alive. That could increase your feelings of playfulness and courage and empowerment, right? You're also turning the world upside down, so it shifts perspective, and that's just such a wonderful thing. I had a lovely teacher, and they would often say, just very lightly, you have a problem, you can't figure it out, take your legs up the wall, shift, go upside down in some way, and give it some space, and the solution may come, right? So, and again, especially the cooling, preparing for meditation, it will help with meditation. It's going to shift your pranic energy and ideally help you start to slow down and regulate. The risks, falling, right? Right. So the list is falling and getting hurt. Areas of the body, hands and wrists, shoulders, neck, obviously a head injury. If you're not stabilized in the thighs and the low belly, right? Low back, through kind of a hyperextension, right? Things also to be concerned about is extreme fear, right? So the postures could help give, and create courage. But if someone is very, very fearful, it's not a great series of postures to do, right? So that would kind of lead me to contraindication. So osteoporosis, osteopenia, inversion's not great. Glaucoma, anything with the eyes, pressure in the eyes. History of stroke, history of, high blood pressure, especially extreme high blood pressure, extreme low blood pressure. Pregnancy, not because you're upside down, but because you could fall and your joints are less stable and your center of gravity is different. So, obviously we never want to fall when we're pregnant. And then again, as I mentioned at the beginning, extreme fear. So it's not like, oh, you're scared. My student's scared. I'm going to push them into an inversion. That'll help them. No, extreme fear. That's a no. Okay. We'll talk more about how to tell if someone's ready to invert. And I'm thinking as I'm saying this, and maybe that's a completely different video. But one of the key things you're going to look at is mobility in the shoulders and the ability to externally rotate while the arm is in flexion at the shoulder joint. Okay. And so we're going to look at that on the mat here in a minute. You're also going to look at upper back mobility and stability, right? So if the student is kind of chronically here, and their head is forward and they don't have the mobility to draw the upper back, the scapula, and the thoracic spine in and support their neck, right? Stabilizing the shoulder girdle, it's inversions like we're talking about is not a good choice for them. And then core stability. So you can even see that standing up, but a little harder to see, but you can absolutely see it in plank. Right? Can your students stabilize the core and hold it? Because if you can't hold it in plank, taking it up, into a full inversion, it's going to get harder and worse, and there's more risk. So you would know if they don't have the core stability to hold plank, holding it with stability in like a Tadasana alignment, then you wouldn't want to invert them either, right? So, here's key things that we're looking for in that and with the students. So we're going to go onto the mat now, and I'm just going to kind of show you and walk you through. If you're going to do the practice with me, I would recommend having a couple blocks, having a wall, and having a strap. And we're going to loop the strap, right? Shoulder head with distance apart, so it's going to go right up over your elbow. Okay, so I'm going to change my camera right now and go onto the mat. You'll notice that, oh, I realized, I hope my sound wasn't off. I'm going to sound right here. It's going to change a little bit. Hopefully it'll be better. Okay, so you'll notice that my mat is against the wall, short edge. Okay, so just as a little bit of housekeeping, and we'll use the mat that way. Now, we always start with Tadasana, and it is no different here for our inversions, right? We're looking for Tadasana, right? And if we're looking specifically at handstand, right, it is Tadasana, but we're on our hands. Okay, so it is the exact same alignment, So if we're looking right in Tadasana, it's thighs engaged here with your thighs engaged and your thighs neutral. They're not turned out or in. And if you start to look at universal actions and universal paired actions, it's very much, right, that spinning the inner thighs back and lifting up through your core. Or in when you're upside down, it's spinning the inner thighs back and pulling up through your legs. Okay. You're really going to lengthen and use your legs to hold you into the inversion. Super important. And with that, right, the pelvis is in neutral in all three planes. So we don't want it tucked. We don't want, anterior tilt. We don't want a posterior tilt, right? We don't want a side hip up or down. We don't want to be twisted in space, especially as we step up or kick up. It gets more important as you use more momentum to get into these inversions. Today's inversion, the diagonal walking up the wall, it still has risk, but because we're using the wall and it's more mindful, a little bit less of the risk, but still a concern, right? And then the spine in its natural curves, including the neck, right? Including the neck. And the shoulder girdle stable to protect the neck and head. So as I mentioned, right, so we go from Tadasana and now we have our arms in flexion at the shoulder joint. And the most stable position and I know you know this, but I'm saying it again because it's like I want it to be like this big thing. The most stable position for your shoulder and arm bone when your arm is up in flexion like this is external rotation. External rotation, that's what you want there. So we want to stabilize. Now, when we were in down dog, which is building towards this, we taught, right, from extended child's pose, wrapping, and explicitly showing our students and having them self assist. It's the same thing here, right? And I'm doing it with you, right? You cue it, you do it, you teach it. Now, same thing if we're forward and we're going to down dog. Remember our pickle jar muscles, okay? The middle trapezius, the rhomboids, the serratus anterior. So it's like you're opening that pickle jar. It's even more important. It's really important in down dog. It's even more important when we start to now put our whole body weight on our hands. So we want the external rotation. We want to stabilize the arm bone in the shoulder socket, and then not just the four rotator cuff muscles, like little Velcro holding the arm in place. No, we want to get all those stabilizing muscles to hold the arm in place. Okay? So we have our Tadasana, neutral in the thigh bones, neutral in the belly, right? Core engagement to stabilize the spinal column, spine in its natural curves, and external rotation and flexion in the arms. Okay, that's going to take us where we want to go. Now, a wonderful kind of exploration and to feel that strength is to take a block in between the thighs. You may know this, up high by the groin. Okay, so not in the knees, up high by the groin. Squeeze the block, spin and send the inner thigh and the block back as you lift up through your core. So you're going to squeeze and hug the midline. Stabilize the entire pelvis and the spine, and then take the upper block horizontal, right? And squeeze the palm. So that's going to bring your outer arms in. Feel that? Make space in the neck. Now, as you push down, right? Root and rebound's important here. As you push down, slowly begin to lengthen the spine and then lengthen the arms up. Okay. Reaching all the way up. Now, you may have a lot of mobility in the rib cage or be trying to get the arms up higher without the space in the shoulders. So if your rib cage pops and the ribs jut forward, draw your front ribs down and see if you can lengthen through the back body. If you reach up and your elbows bend, there's a little bit of tightness there in the shoulders and the neck, right? That is okay. Then you're going to separate and go wider. We want straight elbows, okay? Push down. The more you push down, the more you rise up. Draw your front ribs down, lift your back ribs up, and breathe. Okay, this is going to be our handstand right here. Now, another very helpful, because what happens if we do have either a lot of muscle on the shoulders, right, or the shoulder is tighter because of that muscle, then what happens is the elbows will splay out and we'll go more into internal rotation. We'll start to go like this, right? And so that's where the strap can be really helpful. And you take your strap, make a loop, right? So it has some resistance, it doesn't just slide, and then shoulder head to shoulder head, center shoulder to center shoulder right here, okay? Now, it might be obvious, but when we are measuring out through hands, arms, and upper body, we don't say through the hips because this lower half could be completely different and it's unrelated to the upper half. Now, maybe you're even, but most of us are not. So when you're in hand position, shoulder position, we measure from here. If you were in leg position, right, and using a strap, you'd go from the frontal hip points, okay? All right, so once you have that strap over the upper elbow, okay? So here your elbow joint just above, and move the buckle so it's not pinching your skin, all right? So here you can lift up, the strap will be in your face, a little bit weird, but it's gonna help you, right? Hold the arms in external rotation and slowly come on down. Okay, just as a little side note, right? There's a small part of your population, small part of the population that may have hyperextension in the elbows. Remember, we look at the elbows from the side for hyperextension. I don't have it, but the elbow will go beyond straight. Okay, so if you have a student who is experiencing hyperextension, which is destabilizing, especially in handstand. You could also use the strap, but for that student, you're going to push against it. And that's going to add a micro bend in the elbow. Okay. So just as a side note, for most of your students, it's going to help stabilize for external rotation. But for a small population who has hyperextension where their elbows go beyond straight, right? That destabilizes them. And then you can use this strap for them and have them press against it for a micro bend in the elbow. Okay. All right. So I'm going to move and set up the foundation position to then walk up the wall for diagonal handstand. Okay. Now, the key to this posture, right? Once we stabilize hands, shoulders, right? Core and legs, right? Once we stabilize, the key to this posture is not to be too far away from the wall. So if you're too far and at a diagonal and you're really far away from the wall, right? It's going to feel almost like you're doing an extended plank pose, right? It's way too much core. Instead of it being more accessible, it's way harder and destabilizing to your students. So this is a simple heating handstand, and this is going to build us confidence to later do other versions. All right. So the key here is being close to the wall. Now, why did I say this? Is because you might find with your own practice and with your students, it's too close. They feel uncomfortable. They're scared to be so close. So they bring their hands forward, thinking that, that if it's me cueing, they think I'm making a mistake. They're saying, Mel couldn't possibly think we should be so close. She really means this, but I don't. Because if you do that, you're going to go into something much harder and something we don't want to practice. So, foundation position. Have your feet right up against your wall. Set up tabletop, okay, quadruped. Have your wrists directly underneath your shoulders. Not forward of the shoulders as we do for our down dog, right underneath. Widen your chest. Firm the low belly, lengthen your neck, look slightly forward here, okay? And from here, push into the wall, lift the hips up and back. Do you see how tiny this down dog is? It's very tiny, right? So that's okay. And you'll keep pulling back. Now you could work this and come in and out and help your students get courage and strength simply from that phase one, okay? Now, phase two, I'm gonna stack my shoulders over the wrist and look forward. And that time I hear, because I want you to see something. So I'm stabilizing through my thighs, my core, and my upper back, right? So here's my down dog. I'm drawing my upper back in. Now I'm shifting my shoulders over the wrist and I'm looking forward. This is what, look at my face or my head. I'm not doing this. That will lead into a roll. We don't want to do that. All right. So upper thoracic, draw the upper thoracic, look slightly forward, stack your shoulders over your wrist, and then bring one leg up. I'm a little too close, actually. Yeah, just as needed. Okay. But tabletop. I got so excited. I just went too close. Here. And then step one leg up as neutral as you can. Use the wall. Other leg up, neutral. Am I going to step into my window? I hope not. And then hold and hug in. Stabilize your shoulders. Firm your belly. Use your thighs. Spin your inner thighs back. Lengthen up through your legs. When you come down, neutral thigh bones, right? Don't let them swing out to the side, right? And then pause, mindful. No sliding down the wall, no falling down the wall. And then you could take kneeling seat or child's pose. I'm going to opt for kneeling seat because I'm talking and I want to regulate. Whatever you choose stillness. Okay? So in this process, we are working, keeping thigh bones, pelvis, core, shoulders stable as best we can as we go up, right? So we're not allowing the legs and the pelvis, there's no doggy at the fire hydrant. So any version of doggy at the fire hydrant, it's going to help. It's going to make imbalance in the low back. It's going to twist your pelvis, and it's going to release your core, and it's going to destabilize you. And that could come all the way down to your shoulders and your hands. A little less Little less risk because we're walking up and we're going slow, ideally, though there's still risk. More risk when you turn to kick up in the handstand. That's when we really want to be working this neutral Tadasana through the transition. Okay, so I'm calling this a diagonal wall handstand. Okay, versus a half handstand. And so just very briefly, so you can see the difference, and then we'll work half handstand in a different video, but I'm measuring my legs, a leg's distance apart, where my heels are. I'm gonna put my hands, I'm gonna place my hands. It's a little longer down dog, not that much longer though. Same entry, shoulders over the wrist. Make sure I don't step into my window. I'm gonna step the other leg, okay, and step all the way up. I got my window here. Disregard. And then keeping the legs straight. It's a little off because I have my window, but hips right over the shoulders, and maybe take one leg up, and you would do that on both legs. So that's half handstand. That will build more strength, more courage, right? It's actually harder than kicking up because you're using gravity like this, okay? And it's more precise. So it takes more on one end and less on the other. So this is diagonal handstand, more accessible than half handstand, which we will work. Okay, I hope that was helpful. And I'll see you in class. And I feel energized. I feel warm, right? Just like a heating inversion should do. And I feel kind of excited. So I'll meet you there, and hopefully I'll do the same for you.